What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central. My name is Fareed. Today, I'm going to be joined by Clark Alesna, who is going to be a representative of the TeddySwap DEX, which is actually going to be having their LBE as well as an upcoming mainnet launch very, very soon. So, without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring up today's guest, and we're going to be jumping to everything that this protocol is launching on Cardano. Clark, welcome aboard. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm doing good, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. I know you guys got a lot of things cooking up there at the TeddySwap team. I remember covering you guys earlier this year when you guys announced that you guys would be building a DEX on Cardano. And since then, you guys have been, I believe, really working quite hard. I know you guys had a testnet V1, a testnet V2, and I know that you guys are now getting ready for the LB. So I'm happy to have you on the channel, ready to break all of that down. But before we jump into TeddySwap, maybe let's get a little bit about, who you are, your background, and what you're doing here in terms of the off-chain operations for the TeddySwap team.
For sure, for sure. So as I've said, my name is Clark Alesna. I'm based on the Philippines. I'm a Filipino, and I'm leading the off-chain technologies there at TeddySwap. Um, so I've been working with the Cardano ecosystem for a long time now. I would say since the inception, 2017, and since then I've been in contact with very awesome people like Sebastian from DC Spark, Tommy from Cardano Foundation. It's just been a wonderful experience for me, and I've grown, from a humble software developer to being able to interact with blockchain technologies. It's just been so uh, wonderful so far.
Nice to hear. And thank you for your contributions, especially as a developer. I know that, again, without you guys there doing all the ground level work, right, the entire ecosystem wouldn't be here. So thank you for your contributions and all that you've done, not just for TeddySwap, but just for the Cardano ecosystem and the Cardano community. Now, let's jump into TeddySwap. Do you mind breaking down what TeddySwap is? Of course, it's a DEX, but do you mind kind of focusing on what TeddySwap might be bringing to the market that others aren't? And then we'll kind of jump into the recent testnet and then kind of touching on some of the feedback about that.
Right. Yeah. So TeddySwap is what we try to pride ourselves to be the next generation DEX, and what we really bring to the table is not something new completely, but more like an iteration and improvement over existing versions that's already here in the Cardano ecosystem. So we focus on stable coins. In the future, we'll be focusing on derivatives, but the most thing I'm super excited about is like bringing really good user experience to the ecosystem. I feel like existing products right now is really good. Don't get me wrong, but we feel like we can like uh, increase it a notch, and bring it to another level in terms of user experience within the ecosystem.
Okay, nice to hear. So you guys recently wrapped up, I believe it was a test net. Do you mind touching on, what the community's feedback was and what you guys have maybe kind of done in order to improve the experience, given what the community has said so far about what you guys have put out?
Yeah, so as a lot may know, we're based on Spectrum Finance DEX. So the protocol and as of right now, the front end as well. So we've worked the front end and improved on it a little bit, and put our branding on it. And so most of the feedback based on the community is mostly from user experience. So earlier this year, our testnet was actually a very early version of Spectrum, and it was known to have a lot of bugs in terms of user experience. And so and not only due to our credit, but because of the advancements of Spectrum as well. The testnet version 2 was so much more better as well. But we did have our own fixes on top of those stuff, and it wasn't definitely wasn't like a copy paste job in terms of like bringing those Spectrum features to TeddySwap because it really needed a solid understanding foundation of the technologies involved. And so with all that said, we were able to address majority of feedback, the user experience feedback from the testnet by the community. So yeah, and lastly, we've gathered. So like I said before, like we focus on user experience. We think it's very important, and so this is just just a reminder that this is just like the first version of our DEX, and from all the learnings from the Spectrum user experience, from the feedback of the testnet, it's all coming together where we think we can bring a next level experience with our rewritten front end, which is planned for version 2.
Yeah, I know when you guys first came on the scene, there was a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, and I'm starting to see that kind of pick back up again, especially as you guys are nearing the LBE and the token generation event. Now, for anybody who isn't familiar with TeddySwap, I do have a couple of videos breaking down everything once the project was initially launched. And one of the things I want to just quickly highlight is going to be the roadmap for the end of 2023 and then moving into 2024. So the LBE and the mainnet, I think, will be a focus here for the rest of this chat. But it looks like you guys will be implementing things such as yield farming, open source batching, and a trading competition, which I'm kind of curious to see exactly what that's going to be all about. Now, moving over into 2024, there's going to be some updates surrounding a federated mempool, community governance, welcoming uADA, which I also want to touch on as a part of today's interview. And then, as you just mentioned, there some UI upgrades as a part of V2. Now, towards the end of the year, at least towards the end of this roadmap here, looks like you guys will be integrating stable swaps, which I believe will be focusing on stable coins, right? Being able to swap one for another. And then, as you mentioned earlier, derivatives and enhanced analytics tools. So, quite a bit to touch on. Maybe we just kind of go in chronological order and maybe just kind of kick things off with the LBE and the mainnet launch. So, I'll kind of turn it over to you. Let me know which one you want to jump into first, maybe providing a quick update on the mainnet, or do you want me to talk
Mhm.
about the lead up to mainnet by jumping into the LBE first?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So obviously, we announced the LBE, which will be an opportunity for everyone to be involved in the project, get in early before it hits the actual liquidity pools, without the price volatility. So I invite everyone that's interested to get some get information on that and participate if they want to. And shortly after a successful LBE, we hope we will launch the mainnet DEX, which will then use the LBE to provide the initial liquidity of ADA Teddy pair on the TeddySwap DEX.
So, do you mind maybe clarifying where the LB will be taking place? It looks like it'll be
Mhm,
taking place on Thursday, November 23rd. I know, for example,
mhm.
on a platform like MinSwap, they've got their own kind of LBE platform built in directly on their decks. So, could you maybe clarify that for anybody who wants to participate? And then, just as a quick follow up, there it looks like the mainnet will be deployed on Friday, November 24th. So, 3 days from the time that we're shooting this video. So, the LB will be taking place on the 23rd, and then the following day we can expect a mainnet launch.
That's right. That's right. And to your question, where would be the LBE be happening? Is that it's going to be happening on our decks, of course. So we will have a LBE page, part of the decks. It's a completely new UI that we built for that, and basically the system will be a combination of the front end of TeddySwap and the back end of Tosi Drops, which is a related project of TeddySwap. So basically, people will just be able to go to the TeddySwap decks, um, connect their wallet, and be able to participate through the LBE. And once it's done, they'll be able to claim their contribution to from Toasty Drops
Okay.
interface.
And then to that end, will there be any sort of lockup period or some sort of vesting, or will all the tokens, purchased as a part of the LBE be available for claiming right away on Tosi Drop?
So for that part, I might have to review it. From the last time I checked, it should be available. 50% of it will be available right away, and the remaining would be part of the liquidity pool on the DEX. Um, I might have to double check on that.
Yeah, I'm actually taking a look at the notes here, and I do believe that this might be what you're referring to. So it says
That's right.
50% of the proceeds raised from the LBE will go towards the continued development of the projects, and the 50% remaining will be directly added to the Teddy/ADA pair on TeddySwap. So it looks like maybe then for anybody who's participating, that they should be able to claim all of their Teddy immediately following the LBE. And then this breaks down exactly how the proceeds raised from the LBE will be used. So again, I'm not sure if I see the exact answer to my initial question, but I'll maybe try to see if I can follow up with you here following this, just to provide some clarity for the end users. Because again, I know that with certain LBEs, we may not see all of the tokens purchased given right away, and then
Right.
sometimes they are. So, cool thing there. I do appreciate you answering that question. Let's maybe move things along. Now, there is a trading competition that is shown on the roadmap for 2023. Any details you can share with us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, as a DEX, our main goal is to have activity in the protocol. Attracting liquidity and having active, volume in the DEX. So one thing that we thought of is like having a trading competition, and especially with dApps right now, which is a good thing in Cardano. For example, DEX Hunter, right, where people will just use their UI to interact with um, with protocols, right, with DEX protocols. So we thought about, hey, how can we make it more engaging? Maybe attract people to use the actual platform more instead of like going to a third party platform. So the trading competition will be one of an exciting solution to that, and it just all benefits everyone basically. So it's gonna be fun.
So, I would assume that with something like that, there could potentially be some rewards for the winners of the trading competition. Would that be correct?
Yes, yes. And so that would, I'm assuming for now, I'm not the one directly dealing with that, but I'm assuming that there's gonna be there's allocation from the marketing, there's allocation for the marketing in tokenomics, and it could be that the rewards will be coming from that allocation. But for sure there will be incentivization when you participate. So that's our goal.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. Again, I need to kind of maybe keep my questions within your scope. I understand that you're not necessarily plugged in with all these things. And again, that roadmap is pretty wide. But I do appreciate you taking the time to do your best to answer those particular questions. Let's maybe kind of shift things over into the uADA next, right? So uADA, I think, is bringing a brand new sort of utility for ADA holders who basically have their ADA put into a particular liquidity pool. Do you mind explaining how uADA works and what some of the benefits are in terms of retaining your voting power, etc.?
Yeah, sure. But if it's okay with you, maybe we can also touch upon something I'm really enthusiastic about, the Federated Mempools, before going to uADA, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So one of our, as we mentioned, like there's a lot of items in the roadmap, and I'm more close to the technology side. I'm more enthusiastic on that part. So one of the exciting features we want to bring is something called the Federated Mempools, and so it's basically a solution to a problem right now, which people might not think about. But for example, with like, and which is what reminds me because I talked about Dex Hunter. So right now with Dex Hunter, people are using it, and basically the transactions are uh, I'm not saying being controlled by Dex Hunter, but goes through Dex Hunter. And so because of that, there's like right now there's like certain centralization in terms of transaction pathway to the blockchain, the mempool. And so why does that matter? Well, it matters to protocols like Spectrum, which has open source batching, as you mentioned, and also TeddySwap, where certain batchers that will be much more connected to Dex Hunter. It could be their internal batcher because they're also allowed to run a batcher, or other people that's connected to them will have much more priority to this Dex transactions and the mempool, and basically um, having much more advantage compared to everyone. But these protocols are intended for fairness, and so we want to improve the fairness part of it. And so we want to show that TeddySwap cares, of course, of this, and that's why we came up with a solution called Federated Mempools. So what it is basically a back end mempool that everyone can run. So it's a layer before the Cardano node. So people can submit to this layer, and everyone can then subscribe to this layer and also push transactions to this layer. And so everyone will have a much more transparent view of the mempool. And so with that, we're gonna, just to cut it short, batchers will have a much more fair access to this mempool and level the playing ground in terms of batching. But not only for batching, of course, because transaction transparency is very important. So everyone else that wants to use this, not only for TeddySwap, maybe for Spectrum, for other dexes, will benefit as well. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And I mean, fair in the sense that you guys should be excited about it, but it's also fair for the ecosystem, right? In terms of the users and just the prioritization that they get whenever they put out an order. So that's one thing that I'm starting to see in terms of a narrative shift is more towards open sourcing the batchers. As you mentioned, Spectrum kind of does the same thing. And then there's another project called Genius Yield, which is also going to be using what they call smart order routers, right? And those will be community run. And it's basically up to the fastest and the best SOR to put in a transaction. And once they do, they get a piece of that, right? So it makes a
Right,
competitive market. But in the end, we're doing all this for the end user, right? Because they're the one that's actually putting in the order. So we want to make sure that they get their order executed as quickly as possible, right? With
right,
the least sort of hassle. So I think that that is something that we definitely should kind of keep an eye on and definitely hold dexes to moving forward is either, open source batching or some sort of mechanism like we see with the SORs that Genius Yield is employing. So again, I commend you and the TeddySwap team for really taking that at the forefront and making sure that, there is no, what is the best way for me to say this, making sure that it's a smooth experience in terms of prioritization when it comes to orders being put in on the actual decks. So that said, thank you. Let's jump into the uADA now. Can you explain what that is and what kind of new utility the TeddySwap Dex is bringing?
right. Before I jump though, there's just an update from the team that it is indeed claimable right away, the LBE allocation. So once the LBE ends, it will be available right away to the
Per-
participants.
Perfect. I appreciate
So
you following up on that question.
yeah, so uADA. So it's actually a super fun and interesting sub project of TeddySwap as well that we're planning to do, and the naming is super fun for me because the way we see it is we call it uADA because ADA is for you, So it's really been like a super fun internal joke that we 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 have around. So what is uADA? Well, right now the standard in Cardano liquidity provisioning is that you lock your ADA to a smart contract, and the smart contract will have uh, power staking rights or access uh, or power to your ADA, right? So the voting rights goes to the smart contract, and obviously this is not at the worst thing because usually protocols provide you incentives for locking up ADA and boosted rewards as well. So for example, rewards that the staking rewards that goes to the contract will then be distributed to the users in a way, all this stuff. But uADA is a completely different thing where you basically lock up your ADA in exchange for uADA. So you still, there's still this locking mechanism, but you retain your staking keys as seen here in the screen here. So why does that matter? Well, you might want to retain your staking, your voting rights for stuff like Catalyst, for Midnight, and so that's just a fresh take on liquidity provisioning in Cardano, an alternative, if you will. So which is super exciting to me because it just shows the power of Cardano, but also like the imagination of the team as well. Like what's something unique that we can uh, provide to the community.
Yeah, I appreciate the breakdown there and explanation of uADA. Do you mind maybe just kind of explaining in layman's terms, how the uADA would get distributed? So, for example, let's say I come into the TeddySwap DEX. There's a liquidity
Mhm.
pool for the Teddy/ADA pair. I put in my ADA. Do I then receive uADA? Can you maybe just kind of walk us through, what an end user would see in the process of getting uADA, and then potentially how they give it back, etc.
Right. So that's a really good question. As far as user experience, it should be super seamless. It would be just trading to a deck, basically. So you just say how much ADA you want, and this would be the exact ADA you get, which is one to one, of course. There will be some fees that will incur during. We haven't finalized it yet during deposit or withdrawal, but basically it's just gonna be similar to a trading experience. You just send some ADA and you get some uADA back. And so in terms of claiming, it would be the reverse. So you would burn this uADA into the smart contract and you would get the ADA back, basically.
Okay, so I think I may have misunderstood it initially, and maybe some of the viewers watching this may have thought the same thing that I'm thinking. So I'm just going to kind of explain what I thought it was, and then again, maybe just kind of get some clarification from you. So I thought that uADA would be what I receive in return for providing liquidity into liquidity pool, but uADA is going to be a standalone token, or is it something that I'm getting in return for putting liquidity in liquidity pool?
Yeah, so actually, uADA is a completely separate token. It's not part of the liquidity pool. So you
Hmm.
have so in TeddySwap, we will have the option to have, for example, ADA to JED, but also uADA to JED liquidity. And so with ADA to JED, then you give up your staking rights. But with uADA to JED, you still participate in the liquidity provisioning process, but at the same time, it's as if you had this ADA still in your wallet in terms of staking.
Interesting.
So
So I'm still kind of trying to understand because, okay, so let's say I've got ADA
mhm,
in my wallet and I come to TeddySwap.
yeah,
Traditionally, if I put my ADA into ADA/Teddy liquidity pool, that ADA is now locked up. I get some sort of LP token, and
yeah,
the staking and the voting power is now in the smart contract or whoever manages the particular DEX that I provide the liquidity to. Right. That's what we're seeing, for
exactly.
example, with MinSwap. And so MinSwap is then able to take that ADA and then they can say, we want to vote for Catalyst, blah, blah, blah. So that's how it currently works. How does uADA fit into this picture now? If I'm coming to TeddySwap, what am I expected to do? Swap for uADA first and then put uADA into a smart contract?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand where my ADA is going and how I'm still retaining that voting power. And I do apologize for pressing you on this, but I'm really just trying to understand the concept.
Not at all. It's super exciting that you have all these questions, like as if you're also excited. I hope. Um. So yeah. So as far as the user experience, it's gonna be like you're swapping
Hmm.
uADA, but you're not really swapping because this is one-to-one asset, right? You're trading exactly one uADA to one uADA. They're fungible, basically. So as far as the user experience, you're gonna input how much you want. It's gonna say how much you will get, which should be almost the same minus the fees potentially, and you will then get this uADA back.
Now, okay,
Now,
hold on. Now, I apologize for cutting you off there.
no
So,
problem.
so I'll come to TeddySwap. I take my ADA and I swap it for uADA. Does the ADA leave my wallet?
Yes. So the ADA leaves your wallet,
Hmm.
but this ADA goes to a wallet with a
Hmm.
mangled address. And
Hmm.
this mangled address is a combination of the smart contract that secures that ADA so that you can get it back later on. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's mangled with your staking address so that then you can choose where to stake that ADA.
Okay, that was, I think, the part that I was missing. I
Yes.
was trying to
Yes.
understand that piece. Okay, so continue on and feel free to explain anything else that you might think is relevant, especially with respect to the mango dash and things like that.
Right. Yeah, I really didn't want to start with that because it's a little bit deeper into the Cardano protocol. So apologies for that. But yeah, it's pretty much that. So you give up your ADA, we give you uADA. And when I say we, it's not like someone is manually sending it. This will be secured by a smart contract, which will be then audited as well, so that we were all having the peace of mind that this ADA is is safe and sound. And so when we give you the uADA, your ADA is then now stored in a smart contract with a mangled address to your staking key. And so within that TeddySwap interface, you'll be able to decide, something like, hey, you have this uADA locked or ADA locked, which stake pool would you want to stake this, basically. And so yeah, and so you proceed with your normal liquidity trading activities. You just provide this liquidity, you get the yield farming rewards, you get the liquidity fees rewards, and at the same time you're getting the staking key staking rewards from the native Cardano staking protocol. So that's pretty much what uADA is.
Thank you for the explanation, Clark. And again, I didn't want to ask that many questions, but I think once you explained the smart contract with the mangled address, that was the kind of like missing link there for me. And so again, I think the biggest thing is obviously, like you mentioned, being able to still control the staking rights when it comes to any ADA that might be locked into the protocol there, which right now has been somewhat of a hurdle where we've seen DEXs basically put out proposals and ask the community, how do you want us to direct and utilize this ADA? But now, even though you're providing liquidity, you still have that voting power and you're still able to control how that ADA is staked if it were to be staked to an additional stake pool. So again, a really cool innovation, and I appreciate you taking the time to break that down here for me. Now, are there any other features that TeddySwap is bringing to the table, right? Or are there maybe any partnerships or integration that you guys are thinking about, for example, like Dex Hunter, that you want to share here with the community?
So no particular partnerships really, but it's more like, so there's two things that I'm super excited about besides the ones I mentioned already, the Federated Mempool. So the next thing I'm excited about is like the TeddySwap version 2 UI, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this video, because this is where we feel like we can really push the boundaries. Yeah, so as we mentioned here, for 2024 we plan to push our version 2 of a user interface. And when we say version 2, it's just not for the sake of having a version 2. It's really going to be a solution to the problem where, you know there's just this lack of user experience. When we say that, hey, everything's all good and well within the Cardano ecosystem, but then you run, for example, a centralized exchange like Binance, and then you run side by side DEX. You can still see some differences, in terms of experience. So our plan is to just, along with the federated mempools, is to create this user interface where it just feels like a centralized exchange, but it maintains the security and decentralization of a Dapp. So that's what one of the things that I'm most excited about, pretty much.
Yeah, and what I
And
like is, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna proceed to the next item, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think one thing that I've definitely noticed has been the attention to detail from people launching, right? I think early on, a lot of people were okay or were fine with that Uniswap feel, right? Where it was just one field here, an arrow, which direction you want to go, and then another field at the bottom with which you want to swap into, right? And
right,
dexes have evolved so much more in the last year, especially with, for example, things like we've seen with Axo Trade, bringing algorithms, trading strategies, the ability to DCA, and just a professional overall feel. I think that
right,
that's the ecosystem maturing but then evolving. I mentioned this before. We've got MinSwap. Now they're doing MinSwap Pro. We've got Axo. They've got a pro feature. We've got Wing Riders are going to be doing a pro version, a pro subscription. So it's really good to see that people are focusing on the user interface, but then trying to bring something that is professional. Obviously,
yeah,
simplicity is great for anybody who's brand new, but as people mature, people get better. I think a more professional approach is definitely the way to go. So happy to hear that as a part of V2, you guys will be thinking about that vision and trying to see what can you guys do to actually make the entire user experience that much more smooth or that much better for people utilizing the platform. So that said, go ahead. I know that there is the mention of stable swaps, derivatives, and then maybe we'll close out there with the enhanced analytic tools.
yeah. And just to add to the user experience part, like not only like all these professional user interfaces, it's really about the simple things. Like, for example, sometimes when you trade, it will say, hey, please try again because your UTXO is this and that. You have to clean up your UTXO or set a collateral. And so this is the kind of stuff that we aim to just solve in our version 2 as well. So hopefully that gives people some idea for what we're shooting for. Yeah. So for the last part, the last item that I'm really excited about is like the derivatives and the usage of layer two. So for example, right now there's like no derivatives like leverage trading in Cardano, and which we see in other ecosystems, and we feel like with stuff like Milkomida and Hydra, which, for example, derivative trading would need super low latency trading and fast finality with all the the liquidations and all this stuff. So we're super excited in doing the R&D for that, and not so again not a specific partnership, but we're looking into this Hydra and other layer two technologies that has very fast throughput and low latency, and which we can provide then the derivative solution in Cardano, and hopefully we'll be the first one to do it. So.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate that point, we started off with just good old fashioned token swapping, but to see the space maturing into options trading, derivatives, this is the direction I think that we need to be headed into again as we just continue to mature. So, Clark, I want to thank you for joining me here. I want to just maybe ask you for any closing thoughts, anything that you maybe want to share, talk about that we didn't get to highlight as a part of today's interview.
Yeah, I guess it's just more on closing thoughts where I would just like to thank the community for supporting us, for all the opportunities as well, and not only from TeddySwap, but just like my entire Cardano journey as well, and 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 yeah, like it's just so super cool to see because I've been here from the start. I would say, relatively speaking, where Cardano was just like sending ADA back and forth to transaction metadata to native tokens, and now we're just here with a booming ecosystem. So it's just super. I'm like super proud of what has been done by the Cardano ecosystem, and it's just so super exciting to see all this and being part of it. With TeddySwap and other projects.
Rightfully so. Again, kudos to you and the entire TeddySwap team. I wish you all the best of luck with your upcoming LBE as well as your mainnet launch. For the viewers today, I'll be leaving all the information surrounding TeddySwap down below in today's video description. Again, thank you so much for your time here, Clark. As always, if you guys enjoyed today's video, I would appreciate you if you could give it a thumbs up. It really does help and makes a difference. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions for myself or Clark surrounding TeddySwap, their LBE or their mainnet launch, then please go ahead and make sure you leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, we'll catch you guys in the next video.